Hey, great to see you this morning. I'm so glad you've made the choice to join us online. My name's Simon. I'm part of the leadership team at Life Church, and I'm here in my house in Woolston, in Southampton. And I figured, since I guess you've invited me into your home, I'd invite you into my home. So it's a little bit weird doing it from here. But I believe God's been speaking to me, and that there's stuff He wants to share with you this morning through me. And so I just encourage you, even in this moment, why not just ask Him just to be speaking to you this morning about all that He's got for you in this time. Now we're all gathered here, but these are strange times, aren't they? Because although we're gathered, we're also very separate. And some of you will be on your own watching this. Some of you will have loved ones all around you, and maybe a little bit too many of those loved ones around you. Some of you will be in shared houses. Some of you will be in flats with loads of people in other rooms near you, but still feeling maybe quite alone. Maybe some of you are key workers and you're out and about and you're going about daily life and it seemingly hasn't changed all that much. Maybe for you everything has stopped quite abruptly and everything seems to have changed. For some of you, you're going to be busier than ever, and for others, you're going to be wondering what to fill your time with during this season. And it's a strange feeling, isn't it? Knowing that we are together in this, even though we're apart, isn't it? And I think that's why this value that we're going to be looking at this morning as part of our Culture Revealed series is particularly pertinent at this time. You see, at Life Church, we are all about people. It's true. It's been true all the way through the whole of the series that we've been looking at. It's been true the whole life of Life Church since we started. We started with the value that said Jesus is all, and we're ending with the value that we're all about people. And I guess that's kind of summed up in our purpose, that we take from Matthew 22 verses 37 to 39, which says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind." And then it goes on to say, "And love your neighbour as yourself." See, that's why Jesus is all, and we're all about people. And that was true before coronavirus appeared on the scene. It'll be true long after coronavirus is living in our memories. But it's also true whilst this whole thing is happening. It's true in the midst of it. You see, that's why this time I think is so strange for so many of us. We're not a church who turn up on Sunday, we kind of shuffle in during the first song and then wait till we think it's the last song and then we scuttle out the back. You see, there are actually many times when we end up having to chase people out because the caretaker needs to lock up and you know who you are. But I want to be really clear with us all this morning about the reality of the situation that we're facing. You see, this isn't going to blow over anytime soon. We're, barring a miraculous intervention from God, we're going to be facing this thing for quite some time. And the reality is there's many of us praying for a miraculous intervention from God. And we believe Him for that. That is absolutely true, and we believe that God can do it, right? But this is a time of crisis that's likely to have a fairly profound effect on life for quite some time. Now look, I'm not a government official. I don't have special revelation from God on this thing, but it's unlikely that we're going to be meeting together on Sundays for more like months than weeks. And I want you to be preparing yourselves for that. I want you to, I guess, be learning, as you're probably doing already, how to engage with stuff online, because it will do you good. It really will. And I want you to know that while this intense lockdown that we're experiencing at the moment will be relaxed in the shorter term, things won't get back to normal as quickly as they changed from normal. This will scale out, I guess. And I suppose, if I'm being really honest, in the wider sense, things are going to get worse before they get better. And it's important that we speak into these things, because we have a great hope, but we also live in a very present reality. And so I don't say this to worry us, I say this to actually prepare us to help us to prepare our hearts and our minds for things that are going to come, and that being prepared will enable us to deal with them when they come. You see, this is, I think, something that Jesus does fairly clearly. In John 16, verse 33, he's speaking to the disciples, and he tells them really plainly this: in this world you will have troubles. The good news is that he doesn't finish there, okay? He doesn't just say there's going to be trouble, because he then reminds them to take heart. I have overcome the world. The reality is that Jesus, yes, he tells us there will be trouble, but he also tells us, I'm going to be with you through it, and we have a sure and certain hope in him because he has overcome the world. He has overcome these problems. He has overcome sickness and death, and that includes coronavirus. But we live in the now and the not quite yet of the future, and so we deal with these things. That's why he tells us. He doesn't gloss over the trouble, does he? He tells us. And we see it at lots of other points in the New Testament too, where the writers say this phrase of, I don't want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, or I don't want you to be unaware, before going on to name these things that the believers are going to have to face, that they're going to have to accept, and the things that they're going to expect. And you see, being able to name these things as they happen helps us all to deal with them. We actually apply this in the world of physical health all the time. So, for example, a distal transverse fracture of the tibia is going to be treated differently to a stubbed toe, right? It's the same in mental health. So naming a condition helps you to know how to deal with it. Even actually giving it a name that isn't the official name helps. So, for example, depression is a very real thing that many people deal with, and lots of people actually call it the black dog. Winston Churchill coined the phrase of this black dog. In a sense, it follows them around. It can be hard to shake off. It just lurks in the background. Even in seeming victory, it's there. But it's not the same as having just a low day. You see, I'll be honest, I've had low days in the last couple of weeks where I've just felt a bit... I've lacked motivation, but I'm not depressed, and therefore I need to treat it accordingly. I need to treat it as, okay, this is a low day. Just as actually if I was suffering with depression, I would need to treat that accordingly too. And you see, it's important when we name things, when we get things in the right perspective, maybe to do that. And we can do that with coronavirus. You see, this isn't like a really bad cold I had last winter. This is a crisis. This is a national and global pandemic that has had enormous impact around the whole world. It's a crisis and it's ongoing. And in reality, there is no one person or one group that has an answer for exactly how to deal with it or to solve the problem. This isn't like a fire in your house and you phone the fire brigade and they turn up and they can deal with it. This isn't a hurricane that's happened in one place in the world so we can send aid and they can sort it. This is everybody. And as a result of it being everybody, the impact has to be on a local level and the help has to come on a local level because we're all facing this. From the highest, the Prime Minister is self-isolating as I speak because he's affected by this. This reaches absolutely everybody. And that's okay. We need to understand that we can come to terms with something like that when we understand what we're dealing with. Once we come to terms with even something as big as this, we can kind of name it. We can go, okay, this is a global pandemic, and we can kind of park that on a shelf and go, I know what this is. Even though I've never dealt with it before, I know what this is. And that can just stay there, freeing my mind to be able to deal with all the other stuff about how I find myself in the midst of it. Because you see, in dealing with it, once we find ourselves in the midst of it, we'll all go through different emotional stages, possibly similar to that, really, of grief, or certainly the emotional cycle of change. And look, we all process stuff very differently and at different speeds. Some of us internally, some externally, but the reality is none of us are immune to these feelings, and it's okay to recognise those. But like I say, we will all process them differently. Even if your kids are very like you, they'll be different to you. Even if your spouse is extremely similar to you, they'll be different to you. If those around you seem like they're dealing with it in a completely different way, that's because they are. And so we need to firstly understand that looking at other people, looking at how other people are dealing with this situation, is a comparison thing. And comparison is always a thief of joy. So just concentrate on you. Just for a moment, I'm going to allow you to indulge yourself while I'm speaking to you to just think, okay, how am I doing? Not thinking how are they doing, oh, they seem to be doing much better, they seem to be doing much worse, oh, that makes me feel good. Comparison will always be a thief of joy. Secondly then, see the first point. Don't compare yourself. And if you're really struggling with kind of looking at other people and seeing how other people are dealing with it, then just revisit point one more time, which is stop comparing yourself. It really is a fruitless exercise. It's a waste of time and it's a waste of energy. You are you. And I want to help us just to kind of understand how this works, because there are several stages that we'll all have gone through, or we will be going through, or we will go through. And they are things like this: shock, denial, anger, blame or bargaining, depression maybe, acceptance and a resolution. Now, you'll have experienced some of those so far, probably not all, and you might have skipped some. Maybe you've been round and round all of those many times over. I want to take you through what this has looked like in reality for me. Just to help you to not compare, but to think, okay, if it's like that for him, I get that. That's a bit like me. So we'll call this me, myself and isolation. You're welcome. Now the first stage is shock. Okay, that moment, that initial reaction where you're just actually a little bit numb to the whole thing. It just hits you. We'll have experienced this in other situations in life, but maybe this seems different. Maybe you just sat and you watched the news for a little longer than normal. I asked actually a lot of questions of my father-in-law, who's a GP, and I didn't have a lot in response to what he was telling me was kind of the likely outcome of some of this stuff. The lady who was doing the news briefing last night was a close friend of his. He has an insight into some of this stuff going on, and I just sat mostly kind of open mouth going, oh wow, okay, I had no idea. And then next is this denial stage, this disbelief, maybe even a resistance to the facts. And I felt lots of things like, this is really bad for other people, but thankfully, like, it won't affect me. You know, when it was in China, it was bad for them, but I'll be all right. Then as things get closer, you still even have those thoughts of, okay, well, I get that this is bad for that group of people or that group of people. But have you had that moment yet where you've just thought, is this real? Is this actually happening? It's like you're thinking, maybe I'll just wake up and everything will go back to normal. Maybe your reaction was maybe a bit more resistant. Maybe it was just something like, this is just the flu. We don't need to worry about all of this. Or, I'm not buying into the hype around all of this. This is just people, just media speculation. They're just hyping the whole thing up. But there's a high likelihood we're all in that denial stage at some point, right? And that's okay. That is okay. But don't get stuck there. Okay? Because quite often this then turns into kind of an anger, an outrage kind of thing. So I've spent a fair bit of my time, if I'm honest, over the last couple of weeks feeling pretty cross, feeling pretty angry, not quite knowing where to direct that, not quite knowing why I'm feeling like that, but there's just kind of been this pent-up feeling in me. The reality was my birthday plans were cancelled. I had a couple of presents, but Joe hadn't been able to then get to the shops because we were dealing with all sorts of stuff, so it was just different, and I felt a little bit like, oh great. Thanks, coronavirus. I was due to speak at Andy and Laura's wedding, and that couldn't happen because the plans had to change last minute. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Killen. And then I'm told, actually, I'm in an at-risk group because I have asthma. Who gets to tell me that? You know, I'm fit and well. I cycle regularly to work, and no, I'm not going to define what regularly means, but it usually coincides with when the forecast has like the little yellow circle that we sometimes see. But maybe you asked questions like, who are the government, or who are the WHO, or who are my church leaders to tell me what to do? Or even, what are they doing? What crazy decisions are they making? Why didn't anyone see this coming? Like, surely we could have done stuff about this. No one consulted me before decisions were made. We all feel those things, right? We all feel angry at points. And often that then eventually gives way to kind of this bargaining, this kind of trade-off point where we go, okay, I get this, I get it. This is going to be painful for a short time, but I can see why we're doing it. This makes some sort of sense. Maybe I'll only get mild symptoms, but if my grandma got this, I don't think she'd actually cope. I'll stay in for now and I'll do my bit. Now, I'll be honest, I kind of stayed in the angry section for quite a while. So I haven't kind of done this bargaining thing. I've got a very stubborn wife who just told me I'm not going out, which has helped actually. And then there comes this kind of depression stage. This is kind of the name that's given to it. I don't necessarily think that equates to depression, as we were talking about just a few minutes ago. Maybe the words helplessness or hopelessness are maybe more helpful. We go through questions like, what's the point? Well, surely we're all going to get it anyway, so I might as well just go out and get it. Or we're thinking maybe more helplessly of the current situation we're in. How am I going to pay the mortgage? How am I going to pay my rent? I'm not sure my business is going to survive this prolonged shutdown. What's the point of even trying? You know, I've had days where I've sat at my computer on the landing upstairs and I've had literally hundreds of WhatsApps and messages, and then I've looked at what I've achieved at the end of the day and I've just thought, what difference is this making to anyone? Now, I know that's not necessarily true, but I want to be honest about where I've been, how I've been feeling, just hopefully to help some of you. And if I'm really honest, this is the first time since I started working for the church last January that I've actually missed teaching. I loved teaching. I still would quite happily be a teacher, but God has called me into this. But somewhere in my brain, and I know it's the enemy who is the father of lies, and I actually entertained these lies for far too long, it was the thought of, well, if I was a teacher, at least I'd know I was doing something, right? But then I had a chat with Chris Kilby and the rest of our eldership team, and Joe, my wife, sent me off to go and have a very hot bath and spend some time with God and just actually pray these things out, just talk to him. And then actually, you know, these things, those feelings just kind of gave way to, I guess, an acceptance. And that's kind of the next phase of, okay, look, this is happening, this is real, and here's, I guess, what I can do in response to what I'm faced with. And I'll be honest, that didn't happen really until Wednesday of this week, just gone, when Steve Petch was doing a seminar online for some of the commission leaders, and he was talking through a lot of the stuff that I'm going to actually be talking about today because I found it so incredibly helpful. Now, I've kind of reached that stage of, okay, this is the reality. Let's work out what we do now. Just think about that though, because that means that I've hosted the last 2 Sunday morning meetings on a format like this and spoken to us about how God is with us, and I've maybe just given blind hope and optimism based on the truth of who God is, but I don't think I was actually feeling it, if I'm honest. And I think that can be hard. I've made out like everything has been fine, and it actually isn't fine. It isn't fine, and there are going to be people who lose loved ones as a result of what is happening now. And I think the weight of that and the reality of that is hitting home. And so now I'm in a place of actually thinking, okay, where do we go? And this is, I guess, the first step, just sharing a bit of my journey with you and hoping that in the midst of it, God is just speaking to your heart gently and helping you to just move along the line a little bit, to just take where you were yesterday and transform you a little bit more today. Now, if I'm, again, honest, as I have been, I've found this whole thing way, way harder than I thought I would. I'm a fairly extroverted person. I have come to realise over the last couple of years that I am almost an entirely external processor, and I like to be in control of things. And pretty much all of those things have been stripped away in one fell swoop. And so I've kind of been reeling a little bit from that. And if I'm honest, I think I'm still cycling around some of this stuff of kind of going, no, really? Is that how it's actually going down? And I guess many of you will be too. And you know, that's okay. This is okay. None of us have faced a global pandemic before, have we? Not one of us. There is no folder that we bring out to go, okay, what do we do? Oh, day 15. Oh, okay, we should start feeling better today. That's not how this works. As I said right at the very outset, You can't compare yourself to others. It will only end up robbing you of the joy of who actually God has made you to be. And so I just want you to just think for a moment. I'm gonna pop up those stages on the screen, and I want you to just have a think. Just reflect for a moment. If there's people around you, talk about it. If it helps you to name it on the chat, feel free. Don't feel any pressure to do that. But do just have a think. Okay, God, just help me to see, where am I at with this? How am I dealing with it? Because then we're going to come on to some ways that I believe are going to help us through this, and particularly in community together, God is going to begin to restore us and help us and give us a purpose and a plan, even in this time, because we are all about people. Okay, so we're all going to be at very different stages of processing this, aren't we? But the advice is a little bit like that of when you're on a plane and there's a problem, right? You get your own oxygen mask on first before you start to help other people. And it can be really hard to work out how you might help others when you're not okay yourself. So I guess just ask yourself the question, how are you coping? Are you in a place where you're dealing with things? Because if you're not, we'd love to help. We genuinely would. Maybe though you've heard us talking about things like the Life Support Network or the Basics Bank, or you've looked at the church calendar and all the different things that are going on, or maybe you're at home and you're figuring out homeschooling and you're being bombarded from every angle with, you should be doing this science experiment and you should be doing this wonderful craft, and why haven't you made a life-size very hungry caterpillar yet? And with all the suggestions of all the fun things you think you should be doing, it can seem, I guess, just a little bit overwhelming if you're still actually just processing the reality of where we're at, and maybe even just a little bit concerned about those around you, those people that you love and you care for, maybe even the church family. So, do you know, if you're not ready just yet to join a Zoom prayer meeting at noon, no, that's okay. That really is actually okay. There's no pressure. We all cope and process things differently at different speeds. But here's what I would say. Don't get stuck in one phase of this cycle. Don't stay angry. Don't stay in denial. Don't stay in that point of the lowest point where it's like, oh man, what's even the point? You know, that can be a real challenge if you're isolated on your own, but it can be a challenge if you're isolated with others too. You see, we need to process this thing with other people. We are all about people, and so we need each other. And can I encourage you to reach out to somebody? You know, even on our chat thing down here, there's a little button that you can press that says live prayer. It might help you to just to just reach out and say, oh, I'm struggling a little bit, and then one of our team will be able to get in touch with you this week. Sign up to the Life Support Network, maybe just to get that point of contact. But even if you are alone at the moment, 1 Peter 5 verse 7 tells us that we can cast our cares on to God because He cares for you. I just want you to just hear that for a moment. He cares for you deeply. God deeply, deeply cares about you. And so He doesn't just come in and take all our cares. It tells us to cast our cares onto Him. Why? Because He cares for you. And not only does He care for you, He also has the power and the authority to do something with those things that you're concerned about. We're going to pray about that at the end. But I want to just finish today in the knowledge that we are given brains by God, right? He gives us practical common sense in this world. All of our answers are found in Jesus. Every promise is yes and amen in Him. But He also just gives us really practical things that can help us day to day to make wise steps, very practical steps to help us. And I want to be really clear with you, because it might seem like something strange for a church leader to say, is I don't want you to be overly spiritual about all of this. It's really easy to do that, to go, okay, yeah, it's all about this. But in reality, there's some very practical things that can help us to deal with this crisis. So I've got some ideas for us. They're all a K for common sense. I was going to do it with my hands, but I don't know which way around it'll be for you, so I'll forget that. First one, construct your days. If you're not working like you were, why not try and put some structure and some routine into your days? If you're working maybe more than ever, that's kind of how I feel if I'm honest, then do the same. Try and put some structure in your days. So I'm coming down for lunch at about 12:15 each day. We're sitting around the table, we're having lunch together, and that provides me with some structure. If you've got more time than normal, there's a temptation to do something new. Maybe to learn Russian or the Scandinavian jazz flute or something like that. But the problem is when you get to like day 3 and you realise you're getting nowhere and you haven't learned anything, you can end up just feeling like, oh, what is the point? Maybe now's not the time to start something brand new. Maybe now is the time to get up, to have breakfast, to put some proper clothes on, and to go for your bit of physical exercise during the day. Simple and clear routines. You see, we are creatures of habit. No one lives this truly kind of random, spontaneous life. Not one of us. But I want you to just think, what works for you? Work out what that is, and then put in those habits, put in those disciplines in your life. The next K is captive. You see, when anxious thoughts arise, when you find yourself going down a train of thought that you know is unhelpful, the Bible tells us to take those thoughts captive, to enslave them, to grab them, take hold of them. Don't let that stuff take root in your brain. Don't just let it play out and see where it goes. Maybe it'll go somewhere different this time. No, you know where it's going to go. It's going to be unhelpful for you. So take it captive. You see, when we go down those trains of thought, it blows up into this enormous thing. But if we try and focus on the now rather than the what ifs, it will help us. Also, if you know that there are areas of sin that you struggle with for a long time, don't be under any illusion that actually a time like this is probably going to come to the surface, right? It's probably going to be maybe even magnified. So again, why not share that with someone who's close to you? If you can't think of anyone like that, then we've got a whole team of people behind the scenes, behind what's going on this screen, that if you click on live prayer, there'll be someone there to just talk to you. It might be that we don't deal with it all today, but just getting it out into the light is a really, really good idea. I'd also strongly suggest to you that Guy Miller, who leads the Commission, which is the family of churches that we're part of, he's been putting out some videos on their YouTube and Facebook, which are all about the armour of God at the end of Ephesians. They are really helpful to arm you, to guard yourself in this battle that we are all facing. So why not have a look at those? The next one is control. Okay, control. We've all had some degree of control taken away from us, and we can find that really, really hard. It's almost a little bit like we're being punished. You know, your control of your daily routine is taken away from you in prison and things like that. And And now we find ourselves almost kind of imprisoned in our homes, and we've not done anything wrong, it would seem, have we? So why not do this? Why not make a list of the things that are out of your control? Name them. Remember, when we name things, that helps. But then also make a list of the things that are in your control, like when you get up, like when you go to bed, like who you speak to that day, like the exercise that you're going to get, whether you're going to go shopping. But also the things that are also in your control are the things that you are going to consume, and that's our final cut of consumption. You see, I want you to just consider carefully what you're consuming, because this works on several levels. I guess literally, what are you consuming? What are you eating? What are you drinking? Because does it seem like every night at the moment is Friday night? If Friday night is normally when you have a drink because it feels like it's the weekend, hey, it's Friday night. You know, that's got the possibility in this time to just get a hold of you in an unhelpful way. Maybe it's just grazing and snacking throughout the day. There's a very real danger during this time that actually many people become dependent on food and on alcohol. And I just want you to just ask yourself the question, maybe as the person that at home that maybe you're married to, how are you doing? How often are we turning to the bottle? You know, has it become an every night thing? Maybe we just need to think about this. And I guess the question is, am I in control, or is it in control of me? What about what you're consuming from your TV when you flick on that screen? Is it doing you good? Is it lifting you up? I'm not saying it has to be the purest of kind of Christian films, but maybe now's not the time for kind of gritty, tense drama that's going to really get under your skin, that's going to keep you awake, even just hitting a whole box set, something like that. Maybe it's not doing us good. Even with films, I guess just ask yourself that question. See, Paul says to the church in Corinth, in 1 Corinthians 10:23, he says, I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive. Consider your consumption of the news. My wife Jo is a news addict, especially with something like this. She can get glued to it, and so we've tried to limit ourselves to like a morning browse of BBC News or whatever it is, and then the National Press Conference updates. So we're aware, but we're not engrossed. What about your consumption on social media? Are you getting a healthy, balanced diet of good news, of personal news from people you actually know and maybe have spoken to? Some of the things that people have sent me over the last few days and that I've pinged around to some of you have been the biggest laughs I've had in these days. But I know I can also get consumed in what is happening on social media, even on our church Facebook page. It seems the craziest of things, but I can get drawn into that. Who's commenting? What's being posted? Who's liking that? Are we going to get many people to this thing or that thing? Have we put it out enough? Have we put it out too much? Am I consuming, or is it consuming me? And I guess most importantly, you need to be asking the question about this spiritually. What are you consuming? See, the internet, in terms of spiritual world, is like a street market for kind of spiritual content. There's so much out there, and it all looks nourishing, right? And it all looks really good, but can I urge you, can I really, really urge you to be careful about what you're consuming and where it's coming from? Anyone that tells you that they have a special revelation about why this is happening or who this is happening to and all the reasons for it, they're lying and they're deceiving people. That's just not the truth of the matter. If that was the case, God would reveal it very clearly to all of us. And so I say it strongly on purpose because these things captivate people's hearts. In a place where we're looking for answers, anyone who pretends to have an answer tends to get a following. I've seen friends on my social media posting the most outrageous conspiracy theories, and some of them are convinced. Because we are all searching for something to hold on to in these moments. The only one that we have to hold on to is Jesus the rock. And he has revealed his word to us through his Bible. Now, whether this whole coronavirus or this whole thing started from someone eating a bat from a street market or not, it kind of serves this point excellently. Consume the wrong stuff, it leads you to the wrong things, right? So stick to what you know. Look, if you're part of a Life Church, if you would call this home, whether we see you regularly or not, if this is home for you, be listening to your leaders. We want what's best for you. God has appointed us as shepherds of this flock. There's lots of other godly people who are shepherding their flock, and their flock are going to be listening to them. I'm encouraging you to listen to even things like our devotional content that we're putting out. Why not try and make something other than just a Sunday morning once throughout the week? It will do you good. And it's not because we have special revelation. It's not because we have the answers. But it's because we are going to be pointing you to the great shepherd. And he is the one who's appointed us as under-shepherds. And so it's at times like this that many of us want to help. We want to help each other. We want to help other people. And there are two main ways that we are doing that. Once we've processed stuff, once we've got ourselves to a point where we've put the oxygen mask on, actually it can be time to help. And so there are two really clear things. Number one, the Life Support Network. Can I encourage you to be part of that? We're asking everyone to sign up. Using the form, it's going to be linked in the chat down here, and give us your details so that we can connect you, we can connect with you, and then we can connect you to others. And you'll be in a group of up to 10. You'll hear from one of our leaders first. They'll get in touch with you, and then they'll let you know who's going to be the leader of your little group, and then they'll get in touch with you, and then you can let them know kind of your preferences, if you like. So I'd like to be called, or you can message me, or whatever it is that works for you. Or actually, I'm willing to maybe help. I can contact one or two people for you. This is a chance for us to do some one anothering. But can I encourage you to be honest with them? Just tell them where you're really at. If you're struggling, tell them you're struggling. If you're ready to help, tell them you're ready to help. Okay, because we'll all be at different places. We're not trying to catch anyone out. We're not trying to kind of find out, not trying to dig into where you're at. We're just wanting to offer support. We don't want to bombard you. We want to offer support that's practical and emotional and spiritual. Like I say, you're not going to be bombarded by messages or Zoom chats. This isn't Life Group. If you've seen our calendar, we have opportunities to do those things. This is one person to one person just saying, hey, how are you doing? And you know what? Maybe you could ask them the question back as well. How are you doing? I've had conversations on the phone with people that I wouldn't have ordinarily spoken to in the warp and weft of normal life. But having that point of connection has been hugely helpful both for me and for them, even if it's just finding out where they're at. Can I encourage you to sign up? You know, if you're watching this, then you are welcome to sign up to be part of our Life Support Network. Maybe actually there's others that you know who maybe won't be watching this, who won't be finding it easy to access content online, but you've got their number. Why not call them? Why not say, we've got this thing going on, you can sign them up on their behalf if they give you permission to do so, and then that way the net is connected, right? This isn't Life Group, this isn't permanent, and this isn't the only answer, but it will help us to help you, and it will help you to help others. See, the bigger the net, the more it can catch, right? So don't leave a big gaping hole with the connections that maybe only you can make. I want to finish with other good news, because some of the other stuff that's going to be happening, so I said two ways. One is the Life Support Network, one is supporting the Basics Bank. Now we're going to be giving to that, but also you might be able to sign up. So again, have a look online for the Southampton City Mission Basics Bank, and it might be that you're able to offer some support for them. But in doing these things, it brings good news, it brings hope, it brings change. So let me just finish with these things that have happened in this week in our church community. First, last week on Sunday, there was a lady who was watching this, that you're watching at the moment, or at least last week's version of it, who'd suffered a terrible car crash a few weeks ago. She genuinely had life-threatening injuries. We've been praying for her, and if you're joining us this morning, it's so great to have you with us. And she joined us on Facebook last week and just felt the closeness of Jesus for the first time in her life. And so she's been messaging her friends about that and saying, I've never felt this before. Just an incredible thing through being able to reach out in this way. Why not share it with a friend this morning? Why not tell them to come back online and have a little look at this? We had another family who were homeschooling. They needed a laptop to help their daughter to do their learning because it wasn't quite working out. So they put on our Facebook a request to just borrow one, or to just, if someone had an old one lying around or something like that. Meanwhile, God's been speaking to another member of our church at the same time to say, I want you to bless somebody in our church. and I think it's going to be a laptop. And then this thing pops up, so they got in contact with Chris, said, great, okay. Chris said, great, well, let's work it out. This family have got a laptop. They bought them one. We are all about people. Another simple request went out on Facebook for something to be able to clean a coffee machine. The official filters were far too expensive, so they were looking at how that might work. Another person in the church just said, here, have the money, buy them. An incredible act of generosity. One of the members of our church has had the letter to say you can't go out for 12 weeks because of the condition that you live with. So someone went shopping for them, and as if that wasn't kind enough, their husband on the way out the door shouted, don't forget, get them some flowers. And then there we were on a Zoom meeting the other day, and there are the flowers sat behind them, just brightening their flat where they live on their own. There are WhatsApp groups which have popped up on streets. We've got one on our street, which wouldn't have happened had me and my boys gone around and just delivered the leaflets. They even got a bag of chocolate flapjacks that a lady had left out on her wall for them to say thanks. There's been an incredible community, and that's happening all over Southampton because people from Life Church took the initiative and stepped out. You see, we really are all about people. Whether we actually really know you or not is kind of irrelevant. If you feel like you've been on the edge of stuff, that doesn't actually matter. We're still all about people because, do you know, God knows you. He really, really knows you. He knows the hairs on your head. He knows when you lie down. He knows when you stand up. He knows actually before you even say a word what you're about to say. God knows it completely, and He loves you. He really, really loves you. Maybe sometimes even despite knowing all of that. He really loves you. And our purpose is to love God and to love people. And He loves you, and so we do too. You know, we might not be able to meet together in person, but we really are all about people. Why don't we just pray for a minute? Lord, help us in this time of national and global crisis. Help us in our emotions, help us in our extroversion and our introversion, help us in our highs and in our lows, in our questions, in our doubts. Lord, I thank you that you tell us to cast our cares onto you because you care for us. And that's not a problem shared being a problem halved, it's a problem shared with the one who has all authority in heaven and on earth. And so, Lord, we just bring our cares to you now. Even just in this moment, we just throw them onto you, knowing that you care for us. And loving Father, I pray now you will come by your Holy Spirit and bring a peace that transcends understanding into each household watching this. Show them your love, bring them your joy, and help us to remember that you are Lord over all, even in the processing of all of this. Amen.